Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. Every month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, and access to daily news digests from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post, as well as guided meditation programs. Between a full-time job in IT and a full-time job in podcasting, it gets harder and harder to sit down and read the books I'm interested in. This is where Audible comes in. I can listen on my daily commute, relaxing, or while out running errands and still get in the books I've been wanting to get into. You can download titles and listen offline anytime, anywhere. The app is free and can be installed on all smartphones and tablets. Now you can try Audible risk-free with a special 30-day free trial by visiting audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. That's audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. Don't let your busy life get in the way of that great book you've been wanting to read. Go get your free trial of Audible today. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. This is Geoffrey, and we've talked about many times before that I experience problems and struggles with my mental health, and really without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy does work. It's helped for me, but what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, or you're not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's really time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles, and it's time to start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is a customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. So join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And there's a special offer to Nerdery and Murdery listeners. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. That's betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast.
So by that very rationale, Parker Lewis can't actually lose.
Welcome to episode 117 of Nerdery and Murdery.
Big 117. I'm Zig with your nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your Murdery. Welcome to another week of the highs and lows, the ups, the downs, the good and the bad, and the nerd and the murd. So, I was just... I don't know why this tickled me so bad. I was just watching a video while I was waiting for our last episode to finish converting. And so I was just watching Facebook videos, kill some time. And there's this recurring, not recurring, that's not the word I'm looking for. But anyway, this series of videos about a waiter, and sometimes about the kitchen in a restaurant, and the guy comes on, things you hear in restaurants you never expected to hear, or something like that. Or they're very funny. They're really hysterical. But this one, it showed the waiter, and he's holding a couple cups of cappuccino, and he says, "Hey, chef." And the chef turns around, obviously very annoyed. He's holding a big butcher knife in his hands. And then it goes back to the waiter, and he says, "Go fuck yourself." And then music plays, and it says, "That's dumb ways to die."
Hey, chef. Yes. Go fuck yourself.
Dumb ways to die. It just tickled me.
Oh my God. I have been that angry line cook.
Oh, I don't know why I'm in tears. That just tickled me so bad. So much. Oh, that was funny.
Thank you for that.
Such funny stuff. You need to. You ought to see them if you ever things you hear in restaurants you never expect to hear, something like that. It's the same guy. He plays all the characters.
I'm gonna go check that out.
There's another one called Bistro Huddy, and that's a funny one too. Generally about the front and the back of the house. They're very funny, and I mean it's executive chefs, so they're they're not chain restaurants or anything like that. They're very funny. I enjoy watching those. I love when those pop up. Oh man, I finally watched all of Ahsoka. I got through all of Ahsoka.
Okay.
And that's really good. You should give it a watch. I was a little disappointed with the ending.
Well, I mean, after what was it, episode 4, 5, and 6, you can't top that.
Yeah.
It was just wow.
Yeah, and I don't know. And I don't know if there's going to be a season 2 or if this is going to go straight into an Heir to the Empire style movie. I don't know. So anyway, finished that. Started watching Andor last night. I'd heard a lot of negative reviews on it. Listened to all of Two Geeks and a Microphone, their coverage of it, and they weren't overly happy with it. So far, I'm okay with it. I'm going to continue watching it. It's got me intrigued enough. I'm going to continue watching. We'll see, but it definitely is kind of a slow burn.
Yeah, Andor is a slow burn, but I really, really liked Andor.
Yeah, we're 2 episodes in, so.
Oh yeah. 3. I want to say 3 and 4 are even slower burns, but then after that, it really kicks it into high gear.
Interesting. We'll see. And then I also finished Secret Wars, Marvel Secret Wars, and that was really good.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I kept saying in the beginnings of it, why aren't you calling the Avengers?
Yes.
Why? And he actually addresses that at one point.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really good. So those are the things I've been watching and getting in the middle of. So
nice.
Awesome. Well, Zig, I will let you take over on the nerdery side of the house. Dumb ways to die. All right. I'm done.
Okay, so we're going to talk about 3 strangely related series that failed.
Okay.
One of them did okay at first, but then it eventually failed. The other 2 died pretty quickly on. But
Parker Lewis Can't Lose is the one that didn't quite fail.
Yeah. It did okay the first season it was on, and then kind of lost it.
Right.
So we'll start with the idea. So originally there was this series called It's Your Move with Jason Bateman. Basically, it was the same character he had on Silver Spoons. This wise ass who makes things happen, like a fixer. But he's like a 10-year-old kid. Called It's Your Move. It was written by the same people who ended up doing Married with Children and eventually Parker Lewis Can't Lose. They also were writers on Friday. But it was an American sitcom television series created by Ron Leavitt and Michael G. Moy. It starred Jason Bateman, Trisha Cast, Karen Kay, Ernie Sabella, David Garrison, and Garrett Morris. The show originally aired on NBC from September 26, 1984 to February 23rd, 1985. So they had...
If I remember right, It's Your Move was always Jason... If I remember right, Jason Bateman matching wits against the guy who eventually went to Married with Children.
That is exactly correct.
Yeah. Okay.
You are correct, sir.
Yes, I remember the show.
Yeah. So that guy was an investigative journalist who moved to L.A. looking for a job, and Jason Bateman is with his single mom and his sister, and he does all these things and gives the money to his mom, like without her even noticing it. He keeps a little for himself, but he's got all these schemes and stuff, selling term papers and all sorts of other stuff. The guy moves in next door, which is where he's been keeping his ill-gotten gain, or next door, it's across the hall. And he's an investigative journalist, so he's really, really smart, right? And he investigates criminals and stuff, and so the two of them play off each other. The investigative journalist starts by dating the kid's mom to piss the kid off, but realizes he really loves her. And she's awesome. She's just this wonderful person. So I don't want to say it's a love-hate relationship between the two characters, but that's basically what it is. The investigative journalist character really, really likes the kid and thinks he's really smart. But he also needs the kid to understand that the kid cannot pull the wool over his eyes. He's got everybody else snowed, not him.
I remember liking this show quite a bit.
Oh my God, it's great. We have like 4 episodes on our playlist right now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. They're only like 20. It was a half-hour show, so it was like 24 minutes apiece.
Yeah.
But the show centered on Matthew Burton, a teenage scam artist who lived in Van Nuys, California, with his older sister Julie, played by Cast, and widowed mother Eileen, played by Kay. Sorry, I need to get their full names. Trisha Cast, Karen Kay. Matt ran various underhanded dealings with his high school friends, especially his sidekick Eli, which is Adam Sadowski, who ends up going to Valerie's family with Jason Bateman. It becomes the Hogan family. That actor basically followed him there. The status quo of Matthew's world changes forever in the series pilot when Norman Lamb, played by David Garrison, moves into the apartment across the hall. A quick-witted but impoverished writer from Chicago, Norman struck up a friendship with Eileen, and the two were soon dating. Dismayed that his mother had chosen someone he felt was beneath her, Matt attempted to sabotage their relationship, but soon finds Norman to be a cagey antagonist who regularly foils Matthew's plots. So yeah, it was that, and there was a lot of that back and forth going on. So in one notable episode, it was a 2-parter titled The Dregs of Humanity. In the first half of the episode, Eli loses the school's money that has been trusted to Matt for hiring a band for the school dance. To cover the loss, Matt crafts the rise and fall of the band, The Dregs of Humanity, and acts as their manager. The fictitious band would actually consist of 4 skeletons stolen from the biology lab.
I remember that episode.
Yeah, I got that one. And controlled by strings with a smoke machine to cover them up, is a little too successful, and Matthew soon finds himself agreeing to allow Norman an interview with the band for a music press magazine. Figuring that the truth never comes out, Norman will be humiliated. The interview only fuels the Dregs' popularity, and this setup, the cliffhanger, the Palladium calls and offers a $20,000 gig for the Dregs. While heretofore willing to let the Dregs retire, the money is too enticing, and Matt agrees to the gig. The second installment of the 2-part episode was scheduled to air the following week, but was preempted by a speech by then President Ronald Reagan. I don't know if they ever aired it. We have both episodes. In the second part of the episode, Matthew is scrambling to explain why the Dregs failed to show up to a sold-out concert. And to make matters worse, Norman is starting to suspect that the band doesn't exist. And Matthew gets sued. He finally has a brilliant idea to send the band to a watery grave by concocting a story that the band drove off a cliff into the ocean. In a later episode, it is revealed that the fake band was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The problem with this show is its time slot competed with Dynasty on ABC. Yeah. It killed it in the ratings.
It's Your Move was an NBC show, if I recall.
Yes, it was NBC. The show's creators and executive producers were Michael G. Moy and Ron Leavitt, who just 3 years later would take the harder tone of It's Your Move concept and put it in an entirely different show context, Fox is Married with Children, in which Garrison starred for 4 seasons. The two shows also share the same production company. Some of the writers on It's Your Move that didn't go on to Married with Children went on to the next series, Parker Lewis Can't Lose.
Mm-hmm.
It originally also aired on Fox from September 90 to June of 1993.
Parker Lewis Can't Lose was an obvious Ferris Bueller ripoff.
But it wasn't.
It was an obvious Ferris Bueller ripoff.
It wasn't. Believe it or not, the Ferris Bueller television series actually ripped off Parker Lewis. The idea for the Parker Lewis show came from It's Your Move. They did incorporate ideas from Ferris Bueller.
That's what I was going to say. Parker Lewis Can't Lose came out after the Ferris Bueller movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
But It's Your Move came out a year before Ferris Bueller.
Okay.
Year and a half before. And again, you had some of the same writers. But yeah, the idea of the wisecracking teen who gets away with everything kind of took the country by storm after Ferris Bueller. It originally aired on Fox.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I had to pause this. You were just in the beginning of Parker Lewis.
Yes.
Parker Lewis Can't Lose. I'm so sorry. Please continue.
No, it's fine. But yes, no, I agree. It was influenced by Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but the original idea actually came from It's Your Move because some of the writers moved from that show to this show.
Okay, got it.
And some of the same production people, which is why occasionally Bud Bundy shows up in an episode of Parker Lewis Can't Lose. I think I have that episode in our list. I got 4 or 5 episodes of Parker Lewis. The one I couldn't find,
David Faustino.
Yeah, David Faustino. Yeah. There was an episode in the first season called Parker Lewis Can't Win, where Parker Lewis loses at everything. It was my favorite episode of the series. I could not find a decent copy of it. I'll go back and see if I can't find one later on. But it was an American teen sitcom. It was produced by Clyde Phillips Productions in association with Columbia Picture Television. During the last season, the series rebranded to just Parker Lewis. The series depicted the tribulations of the title character, Parker Lewis, played by Corin Nimmick, a Santo Domingo high school student for whom nothing is impossible. It was strongly influenced by Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Parker Lewis Can't Lose features the character Parker Lewis as the frequent narrator of the episodes, alongside Parker, Jerry Steiner, and Mikey Randall are primary characters whose primary focus is fitting in. The show revolves around the experiences of these characters as they navigate the challenges of adolescence and strive for social acceptance within their high school. Their efforts are often thwarted by Parker's little sister, Shelley, and the school principal, Grace Musso. Grace Musso, played by the wonderful Melanie Chertoff, who had also been the weekend update reporter for Fridays, which was an early 80s shot at trying to keep up with Saturday Night Live. The first couple of seasons of Fridays were incredible. That last season wasn't great.
I don't even remember that show. Yeah,
and then Saturday Night Live kind of retooled their cast because they were getting their asses kicked in the ratings by Fridays. Right. And then they eventually Fridays got canceled. I believe that was about the time they brought back Friday Night Videos, or something else on ABC. Anyway, but yeah, she was great in that. Really funny. But as the Principal Russo, she is incredible. There were actually 3 seasons of Parker Lewis with a total of 73 episodes. The first season was really, really good. The second season was okay. The third season was trash. What was amazing about the series is it had a cartoon-like quality to it. Like, yeah, it looked like a regular house or a regular school, but they would go into this section of the boys' bathroom where it looked like a cartoon. It was a cartoon reality. even though everything was live action. The show focuses on the teenage life and has again, the cartoon-like quality, but it's all human actors and actresses. Many episodes contain subtle references to movies, politics, and celebrities. The surrealism was toned down in the series' final season, going as far as having Parker acknowledge this by breaking the fourth wall and canceling one of the show's transitions. The 3,100 students at Santo Domingo High School are called Flamingos after the school mascot. The school motto is E Pluribus Flamingus.
He broke the fourth wall all the time, though, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He did. But in the third season, he did it less and less. And one of the first wall breaks he does is, we're going to be less cartoon-like now.
Okay.
Which killed that show, especially every time they dealt with Abraham Kubiak. I can't remember the actor's name. Big guy. Usually plays a big football player type dude. He was this dumb school bully who always wanted to eat. Goob, eat now. But when you go into his little school bully area where his little desk and office is, he's completely normal. The idea of being the big dumb jock is something he does to make himself the bully. It's brilliant. I loved the ideas behind it. The fashion in Parker Lewis Can't Lose, I had those shirts. I had a lot of the shirts. There was again, I hate to do this. I need to borrow the Podback machine. I want to go back to the late 1980s, early 1990s. There was a fashion house in Fort Worth, Texas, that made these weird rayon shirts called the Wind Blown Duck. You could go out on eBay and Etsy and stuff and find some of these designs. They're brilliant. You could buy them by mail order because their warehouse was actually in Dallas, but the company was based in Fort Worth. They had one shop in the Seminary South Mall in Fort Worth. You could go into the shop and buy whatever you want. The only problem is in 1990, when they were really starting to kick it up, late 1990, early 1991, Seminary South Mall passed a ordinance where kids couldn't walk around without a parent. Couldn't be in that mall unless you were under 18. So I would have to sneak into that mall to go buy shirts. I would go in, there was a video rental store on one section, go in through the video rental store, go out through the back door by the bathrooms, and head straight to Windblown Duck, buy whatever I needed, and then head back out the door of the video store.
I wouldn't go into that mall as an adult today.
It's pretty, it got pretty rough there for a while. But and that killed that mall. That killed that shop because there weren't a lot of over 18-year-olds going to that spot, But they had these really weird graphic designs all over them. They were amazing. The character of his little buddy Jerry Steiner always wore a trench coat and dressed down, tans, light blues, things like that. Mikey Randall dressed like he was coming out of the 1950s. Until about halfway through the first season. That was about 1990, 1991 when grunge hit, and then he was the poster boy for grunge. So, the fashion was kind of nuts and crazy. It encapsulated the end of the 80s and the beginning of the 90s. If for nothing else, you should see it for that, because it's like, oh yeah, I forgot. We used to wear that for about a year, and then it wasn't cool anymore. It's bizarre. What was it? Cree called his shirts. She called them Belle Biv DeVoe shirts. But yeah, so he would break the fourth wall a lot. The show was originally developed for CBS, but CBS rejected it and sent it to the new Fox network, and Fox carried it for 3 seasons. But what was going on at the time, again, it was some of the writers from It's Your Move, so you had that. They were also inspired by Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which came out a few years before. After Parker Lewis Can't Lose came on, there was a American sitcom called Ferris Bueller. The show starred Charlie Slater in the title role. The series debuted on August 23rd, 1990 on NBC and was canceled within its first season. A few months after its debut, with only 13 episodes aired due to its poor reception. The show was produced by Maish Limited Productions in association with Paramount Television. Hughes was not involved in the show's production.
Mm-hmm.
Though based on the film, the series was not a canon continuation. Rather, it was set up to portray itself as being the real-life situation upon which the film was loosely based. In the pilot episode, Ferris refers to the film and expresses his displeasure at Matthew Broderick's portraying him, even going as far as destroying a life-size cardboard cutout of Broderick with a chainsaw. I've included that. However, no further references to the film within the series continuity would be made after this. As in the film, the series focused on Ferris Bueller and high school experiences, but not in Chicago. It was at Ocean Park High in California, including dealing with his best friend Cameron, played by Brandon Douglas, and love interest Stone, played by Amy Dolance, and his sister Jeannie, played by Jennifer Aniston, who still had her old nose. So yeah, it was set in Santa Monica as opposed to Chicago, which I think may be part of the charm of Ferris Bueller is it's a love letter to Chicago, especially when they're doing the German festival parade and he sings Dankeschön on the float. Oh my God, that's amazing! I just posted that to TikTok the other day just because I was thinking about it. Ferris is liked by everyone as the cool guy on campus, much like Matthew and Parker. He is extremely popular, suave, and quick-witted, and is a master of ceremonies who often breaks the fourth wall. Cameron is still a depressed neurotic who, though Ferris is able to loosen up occasionally. Sloane is portrayed slightly different than she is, not completely wrapped around Ferris's finger and has to be won over at times. Ed Rooney is the primary antagonist and always out to get Ferris, but usually ends up foiled or humiliated. His secretary, Grace, is not a wisecracking sarcastic, but a passive pushover with an unreciprocated crush on Ed. Edie McClurg was much better in that role.
Yeah.
When she lists off all the people who really dig Ferris, drips, dickheads, punks, pricks. I love that bit. Though she can be antagonistic, she has proven not to be all bad, albeit begrudgingly. In the film, Mr. and Mrs. Bueller names are Katie and Tom, but in the series, they are Barbara and Bill. Also, Ferris is a junior and Jeannie is a senior as opposed to the other way around. So Jeannie's actually older than Ferris in the series. Compared to the film, the show received mostly negative reviews from critics. It also suffered from comparisons to not only the 80s film, but also another series, Parker Lewis Can't Lose. At the time, the series initially proved to be more successful when it came to ratings, lasting for 3 seasons. Ratings for Ferris were strong at first, but declined in later episodes. The series was canceled due to poor viewership and low ratings after 1 season airing a total of 13 episodes. The thing was, after the first episode, they added a third character, or a fourth character in Ferris Bueller that was the geek in the Parker Lewis episode.
Okay.
So when Ferris Bueller came out, the first episode did okay. The second episode was bad. By the third episode, they started trying to emulate Parker Lewis Can't Lose because it was beating them in the ratings. Which is why I link all 3 of these together. You had writers for one show moving to the next one, and the other show which tried to copy it, but it couldn't save itself.
Right.
I have included some episodes of the Ferris Bueller show. Not as good quality as the Parker Lewis or It's Your Move because both of those shows lasted longer, so I'm assuming there were probably videotapes made of them that were released. Maybe not on DVD, but on VHS. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure Parker Lewis had VHS releases. But Ferris Bueller didn't because it only lasted 13 episodes and everybody kind of wanted to forget it. But you can, if you watch, like, and I've included the third episode of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, as well as like 5 or 6 episodes of Parker Lewis Can't Lose. They tried to recreate some of the Parker episodes shot for shot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really kind of sad. It's like, oh my God, go with your own thing. I think if they'd have tried to riff on Ferris Bueller a little better, set it in Chicago, that series probably would have been pretty good. Because Charlie Slater was great. Brandon Douglas was great. Amy Dolenz was great. Jennifer Aniston was great. But, if Ferris Bueller had have made it, say, gone 5 or 6 seasons, she never would have done Friends.
Sorry, Amy Dolenz, Mickey Dolenz kid?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe that is correct. Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't have any information on the fourth character, the geek character they brought in. It was basically the same as the character in Parker Lewis. Referred to everyone as Sir.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way, like the Peppermint Pat or the Marcy to Peppermint Patty. That's who that kid was based on in Parker Lewis Can't Lose, and basically in Ferris Bueller they based that kid on the same kid. They even dressed him the same. Yeah, it's pretty sad. I've included some of it so you can see some reference. Again, I apologize for the Ferris Bueller's quality. It is what it is. They recorded it off of television and put it up on YouTube. The Parker Lewis stuff is much better. It's aged better. The same with It's Your Move. I figured it would actually be the worst in quality, but it's actually pretty good. But yeah, that's about it for 3 strangely related series that failed. I just thought it would be interesting to compare and contrast those 3 things because it's almost like they came out of the same mind.
Well, like I said earlier, I remember It's Your Move. I remember liking it a lot. I've always liked Jason Bateman. Parker Lewis Can't Lose. It was okay to me. I watched a bit of that. I remember attempting to watch the Ferris Bueller TV show and dumping out because it was bad.
Yeah, it was bad. Once they started emulating Parker Lewis, it got better, but it still wasn't as good as Parker Lewis.
Yeah.
I watched It's Your Move religiously. I was kind of pissed when they took it off.
Mm-hmm. How many seasons did that last? 2?
2 seasons. I think there were a total of 18 episodes.
Okay.
So they were short seasons. 73 episodes of Parker Lewis and 13 episodes of
Ferris Bueller.
But yeah, they took all the heart out of that movie because they wanted to be like something else. And I think if they'd have just set it in Chicago, there are parts of the back lots that look like Chicago. Star Trek has used them many times. Those things existed when they were making these films or when they were making these shows. They could have used all of that instead of going out and filming outside in Van Nuys or anywhere else. And could have made that a Chicago show, and I think it probably would have done a lot better. Again, it's not the actor's fault. They did what they could do. Jennifer Aniston probably could have been a little bit better. They didn't give her much to work with, though. If you remember in the movie, Jennifer Grey didn't have much to work with either.
I thought she was good in the movie.
Yeah. She did the best with what she had, and she was real believable.
Right.
Jennifer Aniston in this series a little less so, but she's also quite a bit younger too.
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't have a lot to work with. Amy Dolenz is good. Brandon Douglas is good. Charlie Slater is great. I love Charlie Slater. But ultimately the writing wasn't there, I think that Parker Lewis was written better. I will say this. Parker Lewis's first season was really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Its second season was still pretty good. Its third season just fell apart. It's like, they had 2 seasons worth of stuff for it, and then they got picked up for a third and they didn't know what to do. So,
yeah.
And they took, kind of the heart. Abraham Ben Ruby. I knew I'd remember it eventually. Steve Kubiak was played by Abraham Ben Ruby.
Oh, okay. All right.
there was a writer who said that originally Parker Lewis, one of the original ideas for Parker Lewis, was that he was basically Eddie Haskell if everybody liked Eddie Haskell.
I could see that.
Yeah. They never told Corin Nimmick that. But the character that played Mikey Randall, he knew that. So you can, but he didn't know that until like the 4th or 5th episode. You could see how he plays off of him later on in the series, like after about episode 5, how he kind of treats Parker a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
After that actor found that information out because he overheard it. And this didn't come out until years later. But yeah, that's about it for those 3 series. Other than check out the stuff on our YouTube playlist. It's interesting. Plus, it captures a point in time that that I don't want to say it's forgotten, but it's kind of forgotten.
Yeah, awesome. Appreciate that trip down memory lane.
Well, thank you, sir.
With that, I will take over on the murdery side of the house.
Murder.
Excuse me, for today, I got my information off Ocean Road Magazine, Stay at Home Mom, Medium, and Crime Traveler. And this is the story of the murder of Stephanie Scott.
Stephanie Scott.
So life in the beautiful country town of Leeton was positively humming for young soon-to-be married teacher Stephanie Scott, who had everything to look forward to until a tragic turn of events on the eve of her wedding over the Easter long weekend of 2015. In a town with a population of just over 11,000, the worst offense Leeton had previously seen was vandalism of property. Having one of their own, a young woman who contributed to society with a bright future ahead and $1 million smile taken from them in such a brutal manner has undoubtedly changed the psyche of the town. On April 5th, 2015, 26-year-old Stephanie Scott went missing in New South Wales, Australia. Back-to-back Australia episodes. As a school teacher, she was just days away from marrying her fiancé, Aaron Leeson Woolley, and for 3 days, her family searched desperately for Stephanie, knowing she had not simply disappeared of her own free will. So Stephanie Claire Scott was born on October 14th, 1988 in Sydney. And by Easter 2015, she was an enthusiastic and much-loved drama teacher at Leeton High School in New South Wales, Riverina region. The daughter of Robert Bob and Marilyn Scott, Stephanie had 2 sisters and 2 brothers. Her father was the deputy principal at Canawinda High School, where Aaron Leeson Woolley was a student. Aaron grew close to the Scott family and 2 years later began a relationship with Stephanie. And on April 11, 2014, the couple announced their engagement and set a wedding date of April 11, 2015. Aaron kissed Stephanie goodbye and told her he loved her at 12:30 p.m. on April 3rd, 2015. Aaron and Stephanie were invited to a party in Canawindra on the Saturday of Easter weekend, and Stephanie told her fiancé to go without her because she wanted to finalize her notes for the relief teacher. Aaron, knowing she would have weeks of uninterrupted time uninterrupted time to spend with his bride-to-be when he returned on Sunday, didn't argue. He knew Stephanie was fastidious when it came to her work and something he respected her for. Little did he know, however, it would be the last time he would see his beautiful bride-to-be. About 11 a.m. on Easter Sunday, Stephanie picked up school keys from a work colleague's house, and she wanted to make sure her students and the relief teacher had everything they needed while she was away on her honeymoon. Her colleague lived near the school and walked with Stephanie to the school gate and unlocked it. Stephanie went through the gate, closed and locked it behind her, and kept the keys. She had parked her red 2010 Mazda 3 sedan in Myrtle Street near the gate. Stephanie went through a second set of locked steel gates to access the school buildings and made her way to the English teacher's staff room where she stayed for 2 hours and 40 minutes, working at her desk before calling time to go home because she had a wedding to prepare for. Before getting down to business, she had texted Aaron around 11 a.m. to let him know where she was in case he happened to come home earlier than expected. And though she didn't know it at the time, this would help investigators track her whereabouts after her good deed took an unexpected and tragic turn. After leaving the admin block, Stephanie walked along an enclosed corridor towards the locked steel gates. As she stopped to grab the keys from her bag, she was grabbed from behind. One can only imagine how scared she must have been as her attacker placed his hand over her mouth. Stephanie struggled and fought back, scratching at his face and trying to yell.
Wait a minute. So she locked herself in.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'm with you now.
She was dragged along the corridor towards a small room, once used as a photography darkroom. She continued to struggle, scratching and fighting as she tried in vain to free herself. And as her attacker closed the door behind them, Stephanie tried to flee but was pushed violently, landing face down on the floor. The offender put his left arm over Stephanie's throat and began mercilessly beating her to the face with his right fist. Stephanie struggled, fighting for her life as she was struck in a violent rage for up to 30 or 40 times. After 40 to 50 seconds, Stephanie fell unconscious. The offender put on a condom and he raped her. As Stephanie lay on the floor, the offender placed his hand on her throat and removed a 40-centimeter knife from his right pocket. He stabbed her in the neck, causing severe injuries, which resulted in huge blood loss and ultimately her death. Certain that Stephanie was dead, the killer placed his knife on the floor and went home for lunch before returning to the school. He picked up the items Stephanie had dropped as he dragged her from the gate to the dark room, including her car keys. And at some point after raping and killing Stephanie, he went out to Myrtle Street and drove her car to the other side of the school. He carried her body to the car and put some yellow masking tape on Stephanie's neck to try and stop the bleeding. He placed a sheet of plastic into the trunk of her car and put her body on top of it before retrieving a high-pressure cleaner from another room and cleaning up the crime scene. Stephanie's body was in the trunk as he nonchalantly drove her car back to his house, parked it in a large shed in his backyard, and walked to the school to collect his utility vehicle. He removed blood-soaked multi-density fiber, or MDF, boards from the floor of the darkroom and placed them in his vehicle. Investigators later confirmed this after the offender was photographed at the wheel of his vehicle by the automatic number plate recognition of a Griffith Highway Patrol vehicle at 3:35 p.m. He was traveling away from the school towards his home along one of Leeton's main arterial streets, and he later drove Stephanie's car and parked around the corner from a local service station where he filled a red jerry can with gas and walked back to the vehicle. As he left to return home, he drove past the service station in Stephanie's car, and his stop at the service station was captured on CCTV retrieved during the investigation. In the early hours of April 6th, the offender drove Stephanie's car with her body in the trunk to the Cocopera National Park, 50 kilometers northeast of Leeton. He placed her body on the ground, removed her clothing and stuffed her clothes, a sun visor from her car, and the sheet of plastic from the trunk into a backpack before burning the body under branches with 20 liters of gas. He drove Stephanie's car back to his place, removed items including the fuel can and trunk liner, changed his clothing, and drove the car to Pike Woods, Wamoon, where he left it near a canal. After casually meeting his mother at a supermarket just after 7:30 a.m., the offender drove around Leeton, throwing Stephanie's possession into garbage bins on the main street and near a sports oval. These items were never recovered. The police would later find the sun visor from Stephanie's car and other items in a bin at the corner of Banna and John Doe Ryan Avenue, Griffith. Jeez. Aaron texted Stephanie on Easter Sunday, but she didn't reply. And when he returned home about 7:20 p.m., she wasn't there. He sent more texts, but again, Stephanie failed to reply. He drove past Leeton High and his friends' homes, but her car was nowhere to be seen. And while increasingly concerned, he thought pre-wedding nerves might have prompted her to spend the night elsewhere. He messaged her again in the morning, but still no reply. He called friends and family to no avail, so at 4:30 p.m. on April 6, 2015, Aaron went to the Leeton police station to report Stephanie missing. Police conducted a triangulation on Find My iPhone on Stephanie's mobile. It was turned off or not operating. There'd been no activity on her bank account since she shopped at Griffith on Easter Saturday, and no social media activity. Stephanie's family was consulted, and the missing persons report quickly developed into serious concerns for her welfare. Relatives and friends posted appeals on social media, conducted coordinated searches of Leeton, and hired a helicopter to cover a wider area. At 8 a.m. on April 7th, police launched appeals for information through social media and traditional media outlets. Reporters from national media groups converged on Leighton to interview family members and friends. And as the news of Stephanie's disappearance spread, theories began to emerge. Sadly, as is always the case, there were some who speculated her fiance might be involved. As the hours ticked by, Aaron's fears for Stephanie grew. The general consensus from members of the public was that Aaron was as much a victim in this tragedy as Stephanie was. However, most would admit to having a tiny sliver of doubt in their mind at some point on one of 2 points of contention. Either Aaron was involved or Stephanie got cold feet. Detectives attended Leighton High and inspected Stephanie's classroom. A check of the alarm system showed Stephanie disarmed the administration block alarm at 1:31 p.m. and rearmed it at 1:31 p.m. The forensic services group and the dog unit were called in to assist a further search. Late on Tuesday, a large group of Stephanie's families and friends gathered to try to break into the school, believing Stephanie may have been held captive on the grounds. Police spoke with the group and convinced them not to forcibly enter the school. And then a neighbor advised them that they had seen the school cleaner, Vincent Stanford, working over the Easter weekend. A short time later, Stanford drove past the school. And when police stopped him, he told them he had just dropped his mother off at work and was heading home. So Vincent Stanford was born on December 21st, 1990 in Tasmania. He was 24 at the time of the investigation and lived at home with his mother, Anneke Noort, and his brother Luke. Stanford also had an identical twin brother, Marcus, who lived in South Australia. And on March 2nd, 2015, Stanford began a 5-week relief position cleaning at Leighton High, which was due to end on April 2nd, 2015, but was extended. About 7:30 p.m. on April 7, 2015, police were told Stanford's white Toyota Hilux vehicle had been seen at the school. Police went to Stanford's home to discuss his movement and asked if he had seen Stephanie, and he confirmed he was at the school over the long Easter weekend, cleaning the bins and stuff. He denied knowing Stephanie or seeing her there, and as police were leaving, Stanford called them, quote, "Hey, good luck with the search." On April 8, 2015, Detective Senior Constable Whelan went to see Stanford. He wasn't home, so he asked Stanford's mother to tell her son to contact him. And about 11 a.m., Stanford attended Leighton Police Station and made a statement to Senior Constable Whelan. Stanford said he'd been cleaning at the school all weekend, but had not seen anyone else there except for some roller skaters who were later identified and interviewed. He also went to a local supermarket in Leighton, and police were suspicious. They just didn't think something seemed right. So they contacted the manager at the supermarket and were advised it was closed on Easter Sunday. On April 8, 2015, Strike Force Gundibre, it's Gundibre, was initiated to investigate the suspicious disappearance of Stephanie Scott, and the officer in charge was Detective Sergeant Tim Clark. Inquiries with Stanford's employer revealed all of their cleaners were on leave over Easter, and Stanford should not have been at the school.
Huh.
Detectives contacted Stanford by phone to confirm details about his trip to the supermarket, and Stanford said he went to the supermarket on Easter Sunday and bought just groceries, some dinner, and iced coffee. But again, the supermarket was not open on Easter Sunday. Vincent Stanford now became a person of interest.
Why lie to the police?
All right. At 6 p.m. on April 8th, Detective Senior Constable Mike Mill and the Detective Senior Constable Rolfe went to Stanford's home to speak with him. He wasn't there, but his mother and brother were. Stanford's mother gave police a consent to conduct a walkthrough, during which they found a set of keys on a red and white lanyard that matched the description of the keys Stephanie's colleagues had given her. Police saw fresh tire tracks from the front of the house into the backyard, but noted Stanford's vehicle had a larger wheelbase than the impressions. A used condom was found on the ground where the tire impressions ended, and yellow tape was also found nearby. An open condom wrapper without a condom and other wrapped condoms were found on the floor of Stanford's bedroom, and police declared the premises a crime scene. Anneke and Luke were removed from the house and escorted to the Leighton Police Station. Short time later, Stanford arrived home in his vehicle and told Detective Milne he had been out taking photographs. Detectives saw a digital camera on the vehicle's front passenger seat and some large MDF boards on the back smeared with what appeared to be blood. Police seized Stanford's vehicle and he agreed to accompany them to the station. Police removed the camera from the car and turned it on. The first image displayed was of a burnt human corpse, which appeared to be female in bushland. Detective Sergeant Clark spoke with Stanford at the station, and while he was not arrested, the conversation was recorded. Stanford continued to deny he had any contact with Stephanie or her car, and police noticed Stanford had what appeared to be several small, fresh-looking scratch marks on his forehead, under both his eyes, on the bridge of his nose, and upper right forearm, with small marks on his left arm. Stanford cited different incidents of bumping his head and running into a tree branch in the week earlier to explain them. Further analysis of the camera revealed another photo of the same burnt corpse taken from a different angle. Stanford told police he downloaded the photos from a horror movie on the internet because he thought they were funny, and he denied that the photos were of Stephanie. Police had obviously had enough at that point, and Detective Sergeant Clark arrested Stanford for the murder of Stephanie Scott. Stanford was given the opportunity to speak with a solicitor and declined to be interviewed, but consented to forensic procedures, including an examination of his injuries by a doctor, photographing and measuring of the injuries, the collection of fingernail scrapings, and a buccal swab for DNA. Stanford was then charged with the murder of Stephanie Scott, and bail was refused. Detective Senior Constable Kremers of Albury crime scene examined Stanford's vehicle. The stains on the MDF boards returned a positive test for human blood and were later matched to Stephanie's DNA. Destinations stored in the vehicle's GPS included Boundary Lane, Leeton, which was 11 kilometers from Stanford's home, and Cocopera National Park, about 50 kilometers north of Leeton. The national park can be accessed via Boundary Road. Surface deposits on the vehicle indicated it had been driven on a gravel or dirt road, and a condom in its wrapper and a mobile phone were found under the passenger seat. Stanford, though, refused to provide the access code to police. At 5:30 a.m. on April 9, 2015, Detective Sergeant Clark and Detective Inspector Paul Smith told Stephanie's family that Stanford had been arrested and charged. The family were told about the photos found on the camera, but were not told the body had been burnt. A short time later, a national news bulletin revealed an arrest had been made after photos of a burnt body were found on a mobile phone.
Oh, man.
Fucking press. The information leaked by an unknown source, as you would imagine, caused enormous grief for the family.
Okay, I would like to stop you here and say that this group of Australian police officers really know what they're doing.
So far, yeah.
They already got CCTV cameras. Like, oh, yeah. We know how the whole thing went down.
Yup. At 9:30 a.m. on April 9th, 2015, police received a call to say a car matching the description of Stephanie's had been found near a farm on Irrigation Way, Wamoon, near the intersection of Pike Road and Boundary Road, 11 kilometers from Stanford's home, as I said before. A crime scene was declared, and a forensics examination of the car revealed a substantial amount of human blood in the trunk and on the rear bumper. The blood matched Stephanie's DNA, and Stanford's DNA was also found in the car. At 2 p.m. on Easter Sunday, a female witness was walking along Malieu Street at the rear of Leeton High when she heard noises she described as, quote, like things were being moved or dragged across the ground, like things like furniture or something similar. And she saw Stephanie's car reversed underneath a covered parkway. An extensive crime scene examination was conducted at Stanford residence. Police found a car trunk liner from a Mazda 3 sedan, which was Stephanie's. Blood on the liner matched Stephanie's DNA. Her DNA was also located in blood on a fuel can on the outside of a used condom and some yellow tape found behind the shed. The yellow tape was later matched to similar tape used by painters at Leeton High. Inside the house, detectives Rolfe and Milne found Stephanie's keys, a red bra, which was later identified as belonging to Stephanie, and a knife that was later proven to be the murder weapon. Blood found on the knife and the set of handcuffs also matched to Stephanie's DNA. A lubricant bottle and some condoms found on a shelf in a cupboard also had Stephanie's blood on them. A computer in Stanford's bedroom was seized and examined at the State Electronics Evidence Branch, SEEB, and the results were alarming. It contained surveillance-type photos and videos of women and school children and a large cache of bestiality images. Several videos on topics including murder, rape, and bomb making were also uncovered. The SEEB analysis showed that from late Saturday, April 4th until the early hours of Sunday, April 5th, Stanford spent a considerable amount of time searching terms widowmaker, widow knives, sharpest puncture knives, sharpest knife tips, sharpest knife you can buy, best piercing knives, and serial killer knives. There was also evidence he had conducted further inquiries with a security company regarding leg cuffs. Stanford bought a set of Flexicups and a dagger-style knife by mail order. And on April 14th, 2015, a package arrived at Stanford's home and was handed to police by his mother. It contained the Flexicups and the dagger-style knife that Stanford ordered online. At 8 a.m. on April 10th, 2015, a witness attended Leeton Police Station to say he had seen a vehicle fitting the description of Stanford's vehicle pull up near Main Canal about 3:50 p.m. on Easter Sunday. He said that a male person threw what appeared to be a laptop into the water before running back to his vehicle and driving away. Police sent divers out and found the laptop the following day. SEEB subjected it to a process of rapid drying and its contents were downloaded, and it was Stephanie Scott's work laptop. About 5 p.m. on April 10th, 2015, police found the badly burnt remains of a human body on the edge of Cocopero National Park. The body was later identified as the remains of Stephanie Scott. Yet another crime scene was declared, but there were no items of clothing or jewelry found at the scene. A Griffith-based scout group contacted police to say they'd spent the weekend trekking and camping in the park. The scouts were interviewed by officers specially trained to interview children, and a photo taken at 5:34 p.m. on April 8, 2015 by one of the scouts shows Stanford in the background in his white vehicle driving away from the location of Stephanie's body. The photo was taken just after Stanford had revisited the body and taken the photos police found on his camera. And during a subsequent interview, Stanford told detectives when he returned to where he had dumped Stephanie's body because he, quote, he wanted to see if she was still there and thought maybe the wildlife would have taken her. On April 11, 2015, which was the day Stephanie was to be married, corrective services at Junie Correctional Center contacted police to say Stanford wanted to speak with the officer in charge of the investigation. Detective Clark and Milne drove to the jail to record an interview with Stanford, who was not yet aware police had found Stephanie's body. During the interview, Stanford gave the exact location of Stephanie's body and admitted to the murder. Stanford told police he first saw Stephanie when she was upstairs working in the staff room, and he said he had no idea she was going to be there and he had never met her before. When he saw Stephanie, he said a feeling came over him, quote, just that I had to kill her. I wasn't angry or anything, basically emotionless, just that I had to kill her. He later told a psychologist he hardly remembered killing Miss Scott, but did not feel guilty about it at all. He said, quote, this was something I had to do. I couldn't stop myself. He told the psychologist that he didn't enjoy killing, but regarded it as necessary to reduce the tension caused by the need to kill. Stanford considered himself someone who hated being touched and had practiced self-mutilation and enjoyed the isolation that his job in cleaning provided him. He told the psychologist that he could not learn to tolerate people and had experienced thoughts of killing people since he was 7 or 8 years old. He further said, quote, this is just the way I'm arranged. I think I've done remarkably well to live with people 25 years. I don't think there are any treatments for my inability to deal with people. He said he waited for Stephanie to leave, and as she walked towards him, Stanford told police, he said, quote, I'm going home now, have a happy Easter. Stanford said he attacked Stephanie and dragged her into a dark room and asked why he had a knife with him. He said he brought it into the cleaning store because, quote, I think I had to open something up. Stanford said after he removed the knife from his pocket, he, quote, hit her in the carotid artery. After beating her, he states he grabbed my sheath, my sword, and I struck her in the carotid artery. In this interview, Stanford refers to putting tape, quote, on the carotid artery to stop the bleeding. And he was asked if there was a reason he stabbed Stephanie in the neck, and he said, quote, to make sure she was dead. After killing Stephanie, Stanford told police he returned home for lunch. He parked his vehicle at the front of his house, ate a cheese sandwich, and had a coffee before returning to the school, and Stephanie was left lying on the floor of the darkroom. He stated he was at home for about 10 minutes. A second interview was conducted with Stanford on April 21st, 2015, this time at Wagga Wagga Police Station, to clarify and challenge some of the information he had previously supplied and find out where Stephanie's rings were. Forensics evidence gathered at the murder scene was also put to Stanford. A post-mortem carried out on April 13th, 2015, found the direct cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head. Bruises were found on the right side of Stephanie's face, and there was a small laceration on the right lower eyebrow. It's amazing they can get that through a burnt corpse. There was a nasal fracture and a blowout fracture of the right eye, a type of injury often associated with side impact during car crash. And there were 2 stab wounds to the right side of her neck. The right internal jugular vein was disrupted, but there was no associated hemorrhage in the tract. On June 3rd, 2015, Detective Sergeant Clark charged Stanford at Griffith Local Court with 1 count of aggravated sexual assault. Stanford refused to supply the access code to his mobile that we talked about before, and a new Windows Microsoft phone that SEEB had not previously examined. Taken between 3:10 a.m. and 3:13 a.m. on April 6, 2015, the 6 relevant photos SEEB eventually found on the phone were invaluable. At first, the first 3 were too dark to show anything. The last 3 are of Stephanie's body. They had been taken before her corpse was burned and show her naked with a blue towel over her head in bushland. The wound to her right side of her neck was clearly visible. On July 20th, 2016, Vincent Stanford entered guilty pleas to aggravated sexual assault murder. On October 3rd, 2016, in the Supreme Court of New South Wales, Stanford was sentenced by Justice Robert Hulme to 15 years jail with no parole with a non-parole period for aggravated sexual assault and life imprisonment for murder.
Oh, wow.
The judge summary published by the Supreme Court stated in part, quote, the attack itself involved extreme brutality. There are indications it was planned or premeditated. The manner in which he conducted himself in the immediate aftermath by calmly going about his affairs is highly disturbing. Ultimately, the court was satisfied that the offense fell within the worst-case category, calling for the imposition of the maximum penalty. Mr. Stanford's culpability is so extreme that the community interest in retribution, punishment, community protection, and deterrence can only be met with the imposition of a life sentence. Justice Robert Hulme told the court on November 14th that Stanford seldom thinks about his crime and showed no hints of remorse for his disturbing acts. Justice Hulme said that evidence such as Stanford's violent sex-related internet searches and his possession of knives and handcuffs convinced him that Stanford would represent a serious danger to the safety of the community. Following Stanford's arrest, police determined he had an identical twin. Detective Sergeant Clark asked South Australia Police to contact the twin that we told earlier was Marcus and gather evidence to eliminate him as a suspect in Stephanie's murder.
Yeah.
In the interim, investigating police became aware of information which implicated Marcus as an accessory after the fact of Stephanie's murder.
Oh, no.
Marcus had allegedly received jewelry and a driver's license belonging to Stephanie. He later admitted to receiving these items sent to him by his twin brother. And Marcus's involvement is unfortunately a story in itself, and it's documented in the Australian Police Journal. But Marcus was imprisoned and released on September 9th from a New South Wales jail after serving a 15-month jail term for being accessory to the crime when he pawned Miss Scott's engagement and graduation rings. On October 31st, 2016, in a very sad footnote, and only 2 weeks after Vincent Stanford was sentenced to life imprisonment, Stephanie Scott's father, Bob Scott, was killed by a falling tree branch while he was felling trees on the family farm at Canowindra.
Oh, man.
And that is the sad story of Stephanie Scott.
Well, thank you for that story. I'm really glad the police were on this guy pretty much from the start. Yeah.
Quick. Yeah, they got onto him quick.
It's like, oh, yeah, some don't add up.
Mm-hmm. So good that he was caught quickly and didn't stay fugitive for long at all. But
Yeah, because he'd have done this again.
oh, I think so. Absolutely, I agree. Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining me on that story, and I appreciate yours today.
Oh, the Parker Lewis and the other stuff. Yeah.
Yep, I do appreciate that. That'll take us to the end of another week of Nerdery and Murdery. As always, you can find information on our website where we have links to the episode pictures as well as links to our video, which Zig likes to upload for your enjoyment.
Yes, we will have the video out there as well as connected to our playlist so you can see what we're talking about beforehand.
Awesome. You can also find the link to our merchandise where if you wish to show off your Nerdery Murdery fandom, please do consider purchasing some merchandise from there. And if you wish to further donate to the show, you can become one of our patrons, where the link to our Patreon is on our website. Our patrons do help us with the cost of this show that help keep us on the air, so we do appreciate each and every one of you.
Please and thank you.
Please and thank you. And last but not least, please don't forget to leave a 5-star review wherever you can. It helps us and helps others find our information that may be looking for the subjects that we're covering. So with that,
I have been Zig with your nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your murdery.
Cue the music.